All right, the headlines are in and Fall Guys is taking over the world. It's been kind of a wild week and a half or so, depending on when you're watching this. And for this week's feature, I wanted to talk about why Fall Guys became such a phenomenon so quickly. And to do that today, we have a really, really awesome guest. We've got Joe Walsh, lead designer on Fall Guys. How's it going, Joe?
Hey, yeah, it's going well. Just kind of like keeping track of everything at the moment. It's all continuing to blow up, and this weekend it's going to be pretty insane, I think. So yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah, so chronologically, I just kind of wanted to talk to you about the launch and the roller coaster ride of like, wow, we have so many players, turned into, oh no, we have so many players. And then, from there, chaos kind of ensued. Can you talk about that from your perspective? What kind of launch day was like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we launched the game kind of gradually was the plan, in that we would kind of silently release on Steam and silently release on PlayStation and not mention it, and hope that we could get this gradual ramp of people playing. And obviously that didn't happen, and as soon as the cat was out the bag, people just hammered the servers. It was about 5 times what we expected on day one, which was just totally ridiculous. And like the server team have just done an absolutely incredible job to stop everything completely melting down. Like the fact that we've had really minimal downtime is an absolute credit to them. And I think something that people don't understand is quite how complex these issues are. Like, it's not just a case of buying more servers. You add extra servers and then new things go wrong in different ways. One of the things we were happening a lot is we would fix something and we would turn matchmaking back on, and that initial request would fry something else in a completely different way. But yeah, we've been adding things and reinforcing things kind of as we go over time. So we're in a much better place now, but we also have even more players now than we did on launch day, which is absolutely crazy. We've been creeping up that Steam, most played list.
There's a headline that you have 8 million players now in Fall Guys.
Oh my God.
Something like that. I don't know
ridiculous.
If you've seen that one.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like the size of a fairly medium-sized country at this point. It's just ridiculous.
Did you ever think that this game would be that big?
I think we're a British studio. We're very humble and very skeptical about a lot of things. But when we've been taking this game to like various trade shows, like we took it to PAX Australia, we took it to PAX East as well, and the reception that the game got there was the first time we'd taken this thing on the road and seen the kind of joy that it can bring. And like personally, I've had that thought in my head of like, oh man, the queues are pretty massive and no one really knows about us yet.
Mediatonic is kind of it's a larger studio than you would normally think of a Devolver Digital Games published game. But how many people are working on this game? Where did it come from? What's kind of your studio's history?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so Fall Guys at its peak was about 40 people working on it, but we really did start out just 1 or 2 of us prototyping, and the team kind of grew from there as we realized quite how complex this game would be, and once we had Devolver and Sony's backing. But Mediatonic as a company comes from a background of working on some very different games. We've worked on Gears Pop. Recently, we also did Fable Fortune, which was the card game that was supposed to come out with the ill-fated Fable Legends. And so, we've been really looking for a game like this for a long time to put our name on the map, front and center. And Devolver have been amazing at partnering up with us. And, this really does hopefully represent a sort of a total transformation for our studio now that people have heard of Mediatonic. Not only is Fall Guys a success, and that's been a 2-year journey to get to, but it represents a decade of hard work for the rest of the company, and that's in a lot of ways even better than just Fall Guys doing well, is what it hopefully means for us as a studio going forward.
I'm curious if you or internally you've talked amongst yourselves about what caused the game to be such a hit. Like, what do you attribute your success to?
I think it's a lot of things, right? Like, I think part of it is the global environment that we're launching into is kind of miserable, kind of shitty, and we're a colorful, joyous game that doesn't take itself too seriously. And I think a lot of people really reacting to that. I think that it's kind of in a lot of ways what people are looking for when they finish work or they finish dealing with their life. You can just sit down, play a few rounds of Fall Guys. It's not too stressful, but it's competitive. It doesn't beat you up. You're always going to have fun, which I think is a huge thing. I think as well, we've had a couple of very high profile single player, dark, heavy games, really weighty games, which are great, and people have been playing lots of. But again, I think the launch window has timed right. But I think at the end of it all, the experience is something very different. You play it once and you see it and you instantly get what it is. We've worked really hard as a development team to make sure that the game is as digestible and as approachable as possible. All of our levels have to be explainable in like 3 words. It's just avoid the slime. dodge the blocks, reach the finish, and I think that has really helped catapult the game, especially on Twitch and things like that, because it's just like, oh, they're collecting eggs. I get it. It's funny. And I think all of these things have kind of combined together to catch everybody at the right moment with something which really just seems to be what people are after, which is amazing to be a part of.
Certainly in terms of design, I do want to ask you about some of those decisions, right? Obviously, the game feels, in its design, feels very, deliberate, very streamlined. But there's also, kind of the battle royale element to it, obviously. Even the colors, I think people would draw a comparison to Fortnite in that way. How much, influence did you draw from games like Fortnite? The season pass trappings are kind of in there, cosmetics are in there in that way. So I'm just kind of curious about your influences while designing and making the game, and what you decided to cling on to, what you decided was important.
Really, where we started was that we wanted to make something that was going to bring multiplayer gaming to a new group of people, and we didn't know what that was going to be. We definitely didn't start out thinking, all right, how do we knock a Fortnite off their throne, and we still don't really think like that. I think those games are here to stay for sure. But we just wanted to bring something fresh and original to multiplayer gaming, and something unique that you'd never done before. And the real crux of the idea was watching Takeshi's Castle, or MXC, and seeing these middle-aged Japanese businessmen full of enthusiasm on a start line about to go through some horrifically complex, slapstick course. And it was like, it's just, I want to know what it's like to be on that start line. Those hordes of people running through, and all of these really interesting moments of like people who are competing but having to help each other briefly. There are these lovely moments in Takeshi's Castle or MXC where they complete the obstacle and they turn back and they, help the other people up, even though they don't need to. And so one thing we were thinking a lot about is whether or not we could translate that into a multiplayer game in some form. Could you have people helping each other but also ultimately screwing each other over? This was all the stuff we were talking about really early on. And then, things like the Battle Pass, that was just a way of doing progression that also fit the game show theme, because you have TV shows have seasons, and it was like, oh well, Fall Guys should have seasons as well. That makes total sense. And then the characters are just built to be customizable. That was always the plan, was to create something that was like somewhere between figurine and football mascot. I think in hindsight it'll just fits really well. I think we spent a lot of time at the beginning making sure all the pieces aligned.
I've heard different people describe, across the internet, in the gamosphere or whatever you want to say, I've heard different people describe the characters as hard-boiled eggs, as jelly beans.
Jelly beans.
Internally, I'm curious, what do you all commonly refer to the characters as?
We've always called them Fall Guys. Like, it's always been customize your Fall Guy, race your Fall Guy to the end. They've always been a Fall Guy to us. But Beans seems to be the one I've seen taking over, and we're starting to lose control slightly of what they are. Part of me is like, oh, fine, they're beans. You want them to be beans, they're beans.
I guess as long as we're kind of on the topic of design, what is it for you that makes Fall Guys really work? What's the key element there, or key elements?
So I think for me, the biggest thing is that we've managed to make failure fun in a way that I don't think other multiplayer games have achieved before. The fact that you are laughing when you get eliminated is something we've worked incredibly hard on as a team. Everything from the way the character falls over, to the music that accompanies you failing, to the way the Fall Guy stands on his plinth at the end after getting eliminated in round 1 and cheers and celebrates like he's won the whole thing. Like, it's very deliberate that you should feel good about trying, and we're celebrating failure, and we're celebrating you giving maximum effort. And I think that above everything is what makes Fall Guys so accessible to a new audience who don't usually play multiplayer games. It's just so different from being shot in the back of the head from 3 miles away and not even knowing what happened.
I can't say that I'm always laughing every time I get knocked out in the first round in Whirly Gig or whatever it happens to be. But I do understand what you're saying. I'm curious if you have any metrics for this about just rage quitting and people being frustrated with the game. Have you experienced that on the team while testing? Have fans been vocal about that aspect of the game?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people tend to take Fall Guys more seriously than we anticipated. When you go online versus a couch co-op game like Mario Party, that's been a big influence, the ecosystem changes. And actually working in lockdown has been really interesting, because obviously we're all working in our own spaces. rather than in a studio together. And so it's been much more indicative of the experience that people will have while they're playing. And so we've worked quite hard to find those rounds that we think aren't quite as rewarding when you're playing on your own. But at the end of the day, I do feel that a useless teammate throwing the golden egg into the wrong basket in Fall Guys is something that is just part of the game. Like, it's just, you just have to laugh sometimes at it and accept that your teammates were useless.
Totally. On that line of thinking, I kind of want to ask you about what some of the most requested features have been. Are you guys out there listening? Is there something in rotation that's getting a lot of hate, so you're going to decrease the amount of times it shows up? Anything like that?
Yeah, totally. I think one of the biggest things that we definitely hear people on is latency. Everyone's seen those moments where it feels like you have to be on top of someone to grab them, but your tail can be grabbed from miles away. And I think that is one of those things that, whether you're a hardcore player who understands latency and understands ping, or you're a casual family who just want to pick up the game and have fun, when the game is not fair to you, when the rules seem to change, that's frustrating and that's not fair. And so I think a big thing we're going to be focusing on is finding ways to improve how the game feels at a base level, especially when it comes to those latency-based things. And, we're already, we kind of lowered the weighting of Royal Fumble to reflect that slightly, just because as a final round, everything is on the line and it's very frustrating to lose based on something that you think is not your fault. So I think there's things like that at a technical level. There are other technical features like crossplay. We hear people want some sort of show selector as well. I think would be really interesting, because when we were working on Fall Guys, we really didn't know if we were going to have 5,000 or 50,000 or 500,000 players. We had no idea, and we were really worried that if we launched with squads mode, solos, duos, everything, our player base would be split and the game would die before it had a chance to really live. And so that's why we kind of launched with Fall Guys Prime. It's just one playlist, everybody goes. But now that we've got a bit of time and we've got a really healthy player base, we can start to look at more interesting ways to play with that and do some really cool things. Like Fall Ball is my absolute favorite round, and I will happily play Fall Ball 5 rounds in a row until we have one winner at the end. Like, I'm here for that. And basically giving ourselves the options to do stupid stuff like that is quite exciting. And then finally, there are lots of very small things that we're doing. We don't have inverted controls in the game, which I know is annoying a lot of PlayStation players. There are a bunch of very small balancing tweaks, just looking at team tail tag feels like it drags a little bit too much as a team, and we see that coming across online. So there are tiny things that we're looking to change week on week. There are much larger long-term things like latency, which are going to take us a while to fully understand, but we're listening. We're on the Reddit and the Twitter and the Discord every day, making notes of stuff. So we're doing our best, but the process can be frustratingly slow sometimes because the game is so complex. It's networking 60 physics players and a whole bunch of other stuff. That tiny changes can have unforeseen, knock-ons. So we've got to be careful with what we do.
World-ending catastrophe, game breaking, build breaking, right? I have you here, so I feel like there was a story that came up on Rock Paper Shotgun about, it says here, the Fall Guys devs are discussing a level editor, but Warren, it's a huge undertaking. Is there any credence to this, having a level editor? I feel like sometimes developers say things, and as a press, we glom onto that and say like, oh, a level editor would be awesome, but from your perspective, it's like, no, that's just a thing I said, right? I don't know. Can you shine some light on this one?
Basically, I think what it comes down to is that it's really fun to design your own obstacle courses. We've done it internally. It's a blast to figure out that right level of difficulty. They're great fun to build, and we hear that people really want to have a go at building them too. That is something that you can't really deny as a developer. It's we should be listening to people, and if that's what people want, we should look into that. But there are a whole bunch of other things that come with that. Firstly, we use Unity, so we don't have a level editor internally. We can't just publish it and have people start making levels instantly. But also we have to think about what the ecosystem looks like in Fall Guys, because it's very different to StarCraft, right? Where you just build a map, you just find a friend and you play, or there's only a couple of people. In Fall Guys, you've got to find 59 other people to play this obstacle course with you, and so we have a responsibility as the developer of the game to make sure that experience is of a certain level of quality. And if you pick the custom games lobby, you need to get good stuff, and we need to figure out, once we've built the level editor, if we ever manage to get it working, how do we curate that experience? How do we make sure that the cream of the gauntlet crop rises to the top, essentially? So that's the kind of thing where it's going to take us a long time to figure out if it's what Fall Guys needs, because we aren't a a huge team. We don't have hundreds and hundreds of people working on Fall Guys. And so when we pick a big feature like that, we're committing a large percentage of our team to it. And so we need to be very careful that we don't just like barrel into it and start on a level editor and then realize that 2 years down the line, the level editor is still not done and we should have spent all that time doing other things. So yeah, we're talking about it. Yeah, maybe one day, but we're definitely not committing right now to working on it. Yeah,
you know, that seems fair, because even Mario Maker 1 and 2 have huge problems with as you mentioned, kind of curating the levels, curating content. Dreams, I think, handles it well, but again, that's Media Molecule, huge studio, you know, PlayStation backed studio. And yeah, I could see where you're coming from. I think one of the big kind of phenomenons on Twitter for Fall Guys has been people taking and making their own Fall Guys cosmetics. I mean, you've got interest from very large companies like KFC and some other things, and people are wondering what's real and what's not. I guess I have 2 questions in this regard. What's real and what's not? But also, you know, are you interested in doing partnered content like this? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that's changed very quickly from being, oh man, you know, any sort of collaboration we could do would help boost Fall Guys up and into the art public eye. And now suddenly, you know, we're there, and that relationship has slightly changed, and now it's like other companies coming to us to try and get like the leg up right into the public eye. And so we need to be really careful about which ones we pick, and we also have to think about the integrity of the brand. We're not just going to throw everything in, because Fall Guys is its own world at the end of the day, and we don't want to have it start leaking too much with all of these other things, because it's going to become a mess. And it's going to start looking like an online message board full of ads everywhere, and that's not what we're trying to make, you know. So we've got to be careful, but I think the stuff that really excites us is firstly, you know, doing cool collaborations with games that we love. Like, we're passionate about game developers, and we fanboy as much as everybody else when we see certain massive studios being like, hey, look at this cool thing we've done. So that would be really fun to explore. And then also making sure that we pick stuff that fits the world of Fall Guys as well, you know. We want to try and collaborate with things that have that same sense of humor and that we could translate, and it feels like a good fit. I would love as well to do levels, for example. Like, there are some amazing franchises out there where we could take some of their mechanics and put them in the world of Fall Guys and make really, really fun content. Obviously, that stuff takes a long time and there are a lot of moving parts, but that's the fun of Fall Guys, is that we can draw inspiration from so many things. So we're looking at that stuff first, really, and making sure that we pick the right ones rather than just cramming everything into the game as quickly as we can.
Right on. Yeah, I think that's a very like metered and well answered response. Now that you have this huge success on your hands, what are your goals going forward with the game?
I think for me, Fall Guys lives and dies and, you know, really thrives on the variety of the game. You know, that core concept of not having any idea what you're going to be asked to do next is what makes Takeshi's Castle and MXC and Total Wipeout great, and it's what makes Fall Guys great as well. And so really, as a design team, in the long term, what we're going to be focusing on is bringing variety to the game in ways that people haven't seen before. So this might come in the form of as many new levels as we can pump out, you know, but also finding interesting new ways to reuse or tweak content in various different ways. Like, for example, we brought out Jump Showdown, which is a final round variant of Jump Club, where we've tweaked it and we've added these forming platforms. And there are a lot of other rounds in the game where it's like, oh man, we could really do a final round version of that too. So we're looking at that, and then we're looking at the gauntlets as well, specifically because you play them so much, because they're the first levels. You tend to play those a lot, and we're already finding that people have got their roots down and they're shaving milliseconds off. So we want to try and shake up the gauntlets by adding some more variety into them, basically. You reach the spinners and suddenly they're moving a different way, or they're not spinners at all, they're something else. And all of these parts of the level are chopped and changed. So that's something we're talking about as well, is finding ways to create these really interesting new variants of levels that we already have.
That's pretty cool and pretty exciting. I think that there's a lot of beef. There's a lot of Fall Guys beef. People want to know what the best team color is. I think the people have spoken, and it's yellow. But
God, yeah, we're looking at that at the moment. Actually, it was like, are yellow actually losing a lot, or is it just a meme? And it's sort of inconclusive at the moment. There have been some deep dives on Reddit that have been really interesting, and we're reading into. I always feel a lot safer on blue team for some reason. I think the color blue just calms everybody down. They're like, all right, cool, we got this blue team. Let's go. I'm not quite at the point where I'm dreading being put on yellow yet.
I did say yellow, but I probably might get shredded because is it orange? Is the official team name orange?
I can't remember which way around it is now. It's sort of yellowy orange.
Okay, well, I'm safe. If you can't remember, then we're good. But I do know that blue team is always the team I try to punk first, no matter what game I'm playing. So I usually end up orange, and I usually try to steal blue eggs, or I usually try to take blue tail, or get the virus. So that's interesting that you actually are looking at that. But I guess that's all the questions I have for you today. I'm super excited that you were able to take the time and talk with me and be here on Inside Gaming with us. So thank you so much. Thank you for all your hard work on the game. It looks like it's come together in the most fantastic way possible. I look forward to just getting, launched into slime, I guess, and rage turning off my PS4 or whatever. But it's a lot of fun. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me.
I am joined by Aaron Greenberg of Xbox Games Marketing. How you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Alana?
Doing all right. It was an exciting morning. Got Halo gameplay. That's what I wanted. Saw Fable. Very, very, very excited about that. Just a casual question to start us off here, Aaron. I'm sure you'll be totally happy with answering this. How much is the Xbox Series X?